Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. First of all guys, go ahead and check out the new series over on Anime King 3. What if Naruto had cosmic energy? So go ahead and check out that and enjoy. And also guys, I posted a brand new episode of What If Naruto was an emotionless ghost over on Anime King 2. So go ahead and check out that and enjoy. But for now, I'm going to be giving you part 19 of What If Naruto was the direct descendant of the sage. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends in your social media platform, and also guys, remember if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice, and you enjoy the videos on Anime King 2, Anime King 3, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all for your help and support. Remember to comment down below and tell me if you're new. I'll be replying talking back to all of you. So yeah, without further ado, what do you say we begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last spot we left off, as Naruto was on the bridge, Zabuza refused to cooperate as Team 7 arrived, as Naruto stood by as they started to clash against each other. Sasuke and Kiba stood absolutely no chance against Haku. It was made worse when Haku created that ice dome and obliterated them, but Haku was not aiming to kill them, as he just wanted to knock them unconscious. But before the fight could escalate to the end, there was a crackling sound. Haku quickly rushed over towards his master as he took the lightning blade right through his chest for Zabuza. As Naruto rushed over in shock, as he started to get angry, seeing Haku's dead body there, it clicked something inside his mind. As Naruto, without knowing, summoned the god of death. Naruto woke up later on as he felt tired, extremely tired. As Fu was there as Naruto saw Haku alive. Fu would shiver at the memory as she saw that thing that came on the bridge that scared her, as Naruto was surprised to see her scared, as she told him that she took him and Haku and made her way out here. For the rest of it she did not know. As Haku woke up, he knew that he died. Naruto even aged a bit, as he used some of his life force, the Rinnegan last path, to bring Haku back to life. There was a streak of white hair in his hair, seeing that he used that path, the Rinne Rebirth. Now that his master was dead, as he made their way back towards where the Konoha ninja put up a grave for Zabuza. Haku didn't know what to do, but they came to the conclusion as he decided to tag along with them. He wanted to become medic nin after all, and they would help him. With that, time passed as the group headed towards Kira first, as he spoke to Maid there. They had went off so quickly without even explaining anything, as they got to talk, and Haku was given the choice of staying here or going with them. He told him that he would return in the future, but he wanted to travel with Naruto and Fu for now. After that, the group made their way back to Konoha. Fu still didn't like the idea of going back to Konoha because she was worried about Naruto getting recognized, but Naruto told her that she was overreacting was fine. Orochimaru was currently having a talk with the Kage, as Orochimaru the feeling, also talking about Naruto that monk. Gaara has left the hidden sand ever since the Ichibai was extracted from him, as he met a girl named Sesame after saving her, as she invited him to come along for her to repay him in some way. Food, anything. As some food would be nice, as he made his way along with her. As Matsuri had become the new member of the Sand team, filling in for Gaara. The girl has risen up the ranks so, well, incredibly. It shocked everyone. After all, there was only one prodigy from recent years in the Sand, and that was Sasori. And there hasn't been one ever since, but this girl was a true prodigy, as they were going to be attending the Chunin exams at Konoha. As Naruto and Fu and Haku made their way, as they saw Konoha, as Naruto hadn't seen that site in 6 years. So yeah guys, so it's basically that's what I thought. You guys can switch across to the place and check out for yourself. So what do you say begin this new episode? The massive gates of Konoha was open all the way. As they were open, so the spectators, the viewers, the daimyos, all of them could see the potential Chunins. These events were more of a publicity affair than to actually test the ranks of the ninjas. After all, most shinobis made their ranks through field promotion. The exams themselves was to show off the power of the villages, to show off the potential of the future ninjas to come. Excuse me, Naruto said, as there was a small box at the gate with a guard sitting inside. A tall man with a bandage across his nose. He had dark purple hair. Hello. We would like to enter the village, said Naruto, as he looked at Fu and Haku. He had a bored look on his face. It seems like he's done this a lot. Naruto didn't believe any of them would recognize him without his whisker marks, but just in case, he had a hat on his head, somewhat shaped like an umbrella but much smaller. But he couldn't hide the long ponytail that went down into his back. Yeah, you here for the Chunin exams, the man said. Naruto nodded, his usual squinted look on his face, as he knew he couldn't risk people seeing his Rinnegan. Most of these people were high-level shinobi, and even if they did not recognize it as the legendary dojutsu it was, they will know it was a dojutsu. Alright, you need to sign a waiver, saying that you won't cause trouble in the village. Therefore, anything you do will be accounted to you and your friends, and the shinobi that will be there can deal with it as he see fit. As Naruto simply nodded, he realized it was a ninja village, but the amount of unquestioned power that they held was troubling. Well, alright then, the man said after they signed. You're welcome to get to any hotel room, as long as they're not the ones to the east and the west of the village. Those are reserved for the foreign participants. As Naruto simply nodded once again. Enjoy your stay in Konoha and enjoy the Chunin exams. There should be some pretty cool stuff going on this year, with the last Uchiha participating. As Naruto raised the eyebrow, but he didn't say anything. If he had stayed in the village, the last Uchiha would have been in his graduation year. As the three walked away, he heard the gate guard whispering to his companion in a hushed tone. They obviously didn't expect him to hear them from that distance. Did you see that symbol on the robe? Yeah, it's a symbol of the fire temple. I wonder what is one of their monks doing out here. Naruto slowed his pace slightly so he wouldn't walk out of the range so he can hear them. Huh? What do you mean? He's probably just here to see the Chunin exams, just like everyone else. The other guard said. They don't usually care about stuff like this. The other one said. Wait, one of Asuma Brat is in there, right? Yeah, I think so. Maybe he's here to see him. Or maybe just here to see one of the Guardian students. The first guard simply frowned, as he seemed rather unconvinced. Maybe, but should we report to the Hokage anyway? At that, Naruto nearly froze, as Haku noticed Naruto slow his pace down, as he wondered what was going on. Man, just let it go. I mean, it's bad karma or something to mess with monks, right? At that, Naruto released a sigh, as he picked up his pace once again. Yeah, I guess you're right, the other one said. As Naruto and his group walked off into the village, they were just small children, no one really paid attention to them. They were dressed a bit differently, but with all the new people flocking to Konoha for Chunin exams, differently was the norm today. So where are we going first? Haku nudged him as they walked, pulling Naruto out of his thoughts. The familiar sights and sounds had sent Naruto into his memories, as he remembered when he was 7. The alleyway that he just passed by was one of his favorite escape routes, running through a hole through the fence, just large enough for his small body to fit through, while his prank victims had to take the long way around. I want to show you guys around, but first I think we should find a place to stay. The exam finals isn't for another few days. Fu nodded. As Naruto saw the look on her face, it looked neutral to most people, but he could tell that she was mentally withdrawing on herself. She was not good with large gathering of people, and at this place, the place was swarming. So, a temple then, she said, her voice completely neutral. As Naruto nodded. Yeah, if I remember right, I think there should be one a few streets away from the main market. The man there was always nice to me. He gave me food sometimes. Hearing that, a small smile came on Fu's face. Out of all the bad memories, she was glad to hear that at least some people were nice to Naruto. A few minutes later, some navigation through the market. They were standing outside of a small temple, but the building seemed deserted. There was dust, and the place seemed like it hasn't been opened up in a few years. As Naruto remembered that the man that lived there had prided himself on how he maintained his place of meditation. An elderly woman noticed that Naruto was near the porch as she was sweeping. She sent him a small smile. I don't know what you expect to find here, Sonny, but the old monk that lived there is long gone. Naruto turned towards her. Do you know where he went? He asked. The woman looked over at Naruto for a moment, as Naruto feared that she recognized him, but she was looking at his staff and his robes. Ah, you're a monk then, she said. No, sorry, I have no idea where he went. She sighs, she rushed against her broom. Shane too, very nice man. Always helping everyone that he could. One day he was here, doing what he usually did. But then around 6 years ago, he just got up and left. Apparently he got some message from the head monk of the fire temple itself, telling him to move out of Konoha. But I don't believe that personally. I mean, why would he ask him to do that? Naruto simply nodded as he gave her a nod in thanks. It turns out it was the same story at all the temples they visit. Well, all the ones that Naruto could remember. It seems they all left 6 years ago. Naruto wasn't, well, familiar with any of them, so he wouldn't notice if any of them had returned back to the fire temple. The time was too specific to be a coincidence though. It was the same time that he was taken into the fire temple. Finally, they had to stay in a small inn that was out of the way of the base of the village, at the northern edge of the wall. It was quiet and there were only a few people there, seeing that most people were trying to get hotels nearer to the stadium so they could be there and get their seat early. But it was ideal for Naruto and his companions. Fewer people meant less chance of being spotted and recognized. But he knew it wasn't that easy, after all he has changed a lot over the years. But he still had that fear of turning the corner and people recognizing him as that kid from so long ago. Time skip, that's a part. When I was really little, the Hokage once took me there, said Naruto. Right, in the middle, there's this little hill that lets you see over all the trees and give you a good view of the Hokage monument. He spent the entire afternoon just sitting with me, talking about the great things the previous Hokages has done. Naruto had a tired smile as he pointed towards where the vague hill used to be. I really wanted to believe him back then, but I didn't understand why the villagers treated me that way. So when he told me how these men were respected and loved, I vow that I will become like them so I can be acknowledged that way as well. He chuckled softly as he looked away from the happy memory, one of the precious few that he had from that time. Of course now I understand that you aren't respected because you're in a position of power or authority. You get respected because you're loved and respected by the people. It was foolish of me to think that it would be so easy back then, but I was still just a little kid, he said, as Haku and Fu was walking beside him, as they were silently absorbing everything that he was saying. It was a good dream. Perhaps if things were different, you might have stayed and changed all the people that saw you. He gave a small shrug, but his smile did widen a bit. Maybe, but who knows? I certainly wouldn't change anything about now. After all, I wouldn't have you guys, said Naruto. Fu looked down at that, as her cheeks got a bit red. Anyway, I want to show you guys this building that have a beautiful view of our little garden I used to watch. At night, fireflies would gather there, as Haku and Fu was watching and walking along, as Naruto was just bringing them towards a few sentimental places. Most things involving the Hokage where he brought him. Naruto did not take them to where he used to live, but he still brought them to heartwarming place that hold a significance in his heart. In his deep thought, Haku came to a stop as he realized Naruto was no longer next to him. He looked around before turning back to see Naruto standing there. Naruto? The blonde looked unresponsive. As Haku looked where Naruto was looking, he didn't see anything special, just an empty space on the side of the street. It seemed a bit strange that there was no building or stall there, seeing that it was a rather popular part of the village, where many people passed by. But other than that, it was nothing special. But Naruto was staring at it. Naruto! Fu seemed just as concerned as he rested her hand on the young monk's shoulder. She nearly gasped in shock when she saw a single tear roll down Naruto's cheek. Never in her time traveling with Naruto had she seen him crying over nothing like this. The only time she saw him cry was when Shizuka had died. It was here. Naruto's voice was very low, like a whisper, as more tears escaped his eyes to form two streams running down his cheek. I thought, as he took a step forward, walking till he was at the tiny plot of land, I thought I had let you rest, but I couldn't. He slowly fell to his knees. Much to Haku and Fu's shock, after all, they saw Naruto as a unmovable pillar of strength, so to see him in this situation, it felt strange. His fingers grasped at the loose dirt around him. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it's okay. His breath itched as something enwrapped around him. Glancing back, he saw that it was Fu, with a small, compassionate smile on her face. A moment later, he felt Haku's hand rest on his shoulder, as he managed a grateful smile to the boy as well. Who were they? Naruto's grip on the soil tightened. He reached up and wiped away the tears. They were family, he said. Time skip. Cheers of thousands of people could be heard. It was almost deafening as the competitors walked onto the arena for the Chunin exams. People across the entire elemental nations cheering for the new generation of shinobis. Many of the teenagers down there now can become the next Sanin or even the next Kage. Nobody knew. They all came for one thing, to see some exciting fights and cheer on their Chunin hopefuls. Although a good majority was also cheering for the people they made bets on. There were so many people there that the three people sitting up on the roof of the stadium went completely unnoticed. It was because they were, well, invisible because of Naruto technique, and not to mention they were crouched over in a way, so if a Byakugan user had looked up to try and find them for some odd reason, they would think that they were just shinobis, watching the fight from high up. Although a few Anbu passed by, giving the spot a second glance, they could swear they heard the sounds of eating. You know, eating dango like that isn't very discreet. Naruto's voice said in a whisper. Fu happily ate her dango, unconcerned by the slight noise it made. If anything gave them away, it would be the smell. As if to show that very point, Akunoichi appeared on top of the roof. Her hair done up in a spiky ponytail, as it was purple, as she appeared in a fancy shanshin, and sniffed the area. As she sniffed around, she was confused. She looked like she was about to come over, but the Anbu came over and told her to leave the restricted area. The three kids sighed. Being found in a shinobi village, using a jutsu for stealth, was not a good thing. Okay, I think that is enough dango for you. Fu was about to shout, but Haku placed a hand over her mouth as Naruto tossed her food over the other side of the arena wall. As Fu's eyes narrowed, below them came a shout as the dango landed on a spectator. I thought you said the jutsu hid smell as well. Fu spoke in a hushed tone when Haku removed his hand from her mouth, as she looked where she thought he was sitting. The invisible blonde simply shrugged, although that action was not really necessary, seeing that no one could see him. It should. I mean, it did in Kumo. Haku perked up at that. He was intrigued when Naruto showed him the jutsu and told him that it needed excellent chakra control. However, unlike Naruto, Haku couldn't keep it up so long without the pre-path abilities at his aid. They haven't yet told him the story why Naruto came up with it, or why would a monk need something like that. Kumo, said Haku. Naruto patted him on the shoulder as another Anbu raised past, a signal for them to be quiet till he left. Long story, tell you some other time. Haku nodded. As a roar went off from the crowd down below them, it seems that they missed something. Only two shinobis were down there in the arena with the proctor, a lazy looking man that was chewing on a senbon. That isn't very good for the senbon. Fu just nudged Haku and shushed him, as he was frowning over the mistreatment of his favorite weapon. A hush descended over the arena as a Hokage stood up. To his left was the Kazekage. To his right, slightly further away than the Kazekage, was Oniki, the third Tishikage. They were big news when a stone shinobi had passed to the final stage. And bigger news to find out that Tishikage had come, because they never expected him to come. Finally, on the other side of the Tishikage was a man Naruto was all too familiar with, the Raikage. As the Hokage used chakra to amplify his voice, as Naruto smiled, listening to that voice that he hadn't heard in years now. He had really missed his Jichi. Even if he couldn't have the friends that he wanted, or anything, the Hokage at least done what he thought was right for Naruto. He may not have always been there, but that was certainly more than anyone except for the Ichika family has done for him. In his remnants, Naruto actually missed what the third said. And two, genies were in the field eyeing one another up. A Hyuga, this should be interesting, Fu said as she was analyzing them. During the Civil War, she didn't really make friends with the rebels, but she had come to face off against some of the bloodline users. Their unique abilities always stirred that part of her that wanted to learn more. And not to mention she had an unhealthy curiosity regarding fighting styles. She just wanted to know and try to dig deep into the analytic part to try to break up the style into one and put it back together. And the Hyugas were known for their taijutsu style that mixed perfectly with their Byakugan. As the Hyuga opponent was a stone shinobi, it seemed to be the one that made it pass. But the Hyuga didn't seem to be interested with him. He was glancing towards a single Kumo ninja that made it towards his final round. Before he turned back towards the opponent, you should just give up already. Fate has already declared me the winner here. Naruto raised the eyebrow. It was one thing to speak in an arrogant tone, but it was another thing to declare yourself the winner like that. He's rather arrogant, isn't he? Said Haku, as Naruto agreed. Screw you, tree hugger. I don't care if you come from some fancy clan or anything like that. I scrapped my way from the streets, and you're just another obstacle in my way. As the young boy settled back into a rigid stance, a cocky smirk being plastered over his face, Neji didn't look that impressed, as he just leaned back into the Hyugan strike stance. That familiar stance brought a smile to Naruto's face, as he remembered something back at the temple. Flashback. What do you want? A tall man said as he was in his stance. As he glanced towards the young boy, nearby Naruto was sitting down. As he tried to impersonate the head monk, squinting eyes. He wasn't so used to it yet. Your taijutsu style is really cool. The man's face twisted into a snarl as he got out of his stance. This is no mere taijutsu stance, boy. This is the Hyugan, the personal style of the Hyuga clan. It is by no means cool. Naruto tilted his head as he tried to remember where he heard that from, but he didn't notice the man's pale eyes. Hey, aren't you from that clan from Konoha? The man sneered as he looked around, trying to find an exit. So why are you here in the temple? Did you have to leave like me? Naruto got too distracted to remember to narrow his eyes. So the man saw the eyes, those ripple eyes, that were supposed to be one of legends, but appeared not, as he looked at Naruto Renikons. In a way, Naruto blinked in confusion. For a moment there he thought he found someone that he could relate to. Someone that was forced to leave their homes when they didn't want to. Huh? What do you mean? The man simply turned. Figure if he couldn't leave or just make the child leave. Both were against the code that Temple taught. He would just ignore him. Hey! Naruto's voice came out. Don't ignore me. I just don't understand. Believe it. The man swiveled around on his feet. After all, he was from one of the greatest clans, and he had to act the part. Understand? You wish to understand? You are just a small child. How could you possibly hope to understand me? As he reached up and removed the leather headband that he had on his forehead, rather quickly, as he had a strange symbol on his forehead. As the entire tattoo was done in a pale green, and Naruto could see the chakra pulsing through it. Hey, what's that? The man glared at the young boy for a moment, but Naruto simply ignored the look. After all, he was used to it. The man didn't care that Naruto housed the Kyuubi. He had been living in the temple before the attack, but he still looked down on him like everyone else did. From the village. This? The man then went on to explain, but Naruto really didn't understand. Why would a family separate into half? Why would family ever be mean to each other? He really couldn't understand. So, it's some kind of seal, he said. Yes, it's a seal. At this point, the man was really wondering why the hell he was still standing here, talking to this boy. Then, if you don't like it, why don't you just remove it, said Naruto. And you believe it to be so easy. Well, why wouldn't it be, said Naruto. Without warning, Naruto stepped forward, as the man was crouching down. He didn't have time to move as Naruto placed his finger right on the mark on his forehead. The man fell back in pain, as Naruto tripped over his own feet, seeing that the man's arm had hit him back when he was falling down. What did you do, the man says, he grabbed onto his head. What? Said Naruto, as he rubbed his elbow that banged on the floor. You call the seal a cage, right? All cage can be unlocked. So I got rid of it for you. I thought you would be happy. As Naruto seemed confused why the man seemed so angry with him. He was only trying to help after all. But as the man shocked, stepped aside. And Naruto's words really started clicking in his mind to what Naruto just said. He was shocked. You got rid of it? The throb in his head was gone. That throb that reminded him that they were servants of the main family. It was gone. The man blinked as he struggled to understand how was that even possible. Everything he was taught said otherwise. How? Naruto stood up as Hyuga did the same. Ripple. Purple eyes meeting pale white. Well, all seals need chakra to work, right? That is what the books I read said. Yours were slowly taking chakra from you, so I simply stopped it and take away all the chakra that was in it. Hey, I don't even know your name anyway, said Naruto. The Hyuga blinked, still at loss, as he looked at the young boy. Oh, my name? My name is Robin Hyuga, he said. Naruto simply grinned, having no idea what he just did. And I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he said. Nice to meet you. Hey, you okay? Naruto asked, as he noticed a single tear fall from the man's eye. In the flashback, as Naruto remembered that fondly, it was that man that gave him the inspiration for his taijutsu moves, and the vast and precise finger strikes, the attack pressure points. The man was rather surprised and Naruto picked up the style rather quickly, and it helped that Naruto remember each step perfectly after he did it once. It wasn't like he was, well, trained Naruto like a master or a student or anything like that. Naruto just started to pick it up one day after watching him, and the man was just so shocked, and Naruto kept on watching him. Ow, that has to hurt. Naruto snapped out of his thoughts as he heard Haku's voice, realized that he completely wasn't focused on the match, as a stone ninja was on the ground, badly beaten and also burned, while the Hyuga didn't look worse for wear. He just kept on glaring at the Kumo Genin. It couldn't have been a long match, but judging from the awe and cheer from the crowd, it must have been eventful. It was definitely interesting. I was taught that only the main branch members of the Hyuga could perform the rotation, said Fu. As Naruto looked towards the floor, as he noticed a small dome that looked like it was burned into the floor, and a trench that stretched straight towards the stone ninja body. He could tell what happened. As the next two contestants were brought out, two people that brought a smile to Naruto's face. Flashback. Naruto kneeled down on the soft ground, looking at the small plates that were on the ground, with two names that were dear to him, Toki and Ayam. They were buried at the outskirts of the cemetery, near to the training ground that held the memorial. It had taken him a while to find them, their names, lost amongst many others. The cemetery was quiet. He hasn't passed anyone on the way here, but he noticed a few flowers placed in the other graves. His hand lit up in blue and red flames. When he opened them, two identical white flowers were in his palm. It was like someone took a flower and bleached it of all color. He thought that it was appropriate, given the circumstances. Gently, he placed them down over the plates, as tears started to well up in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Toki. It was my fault. As he wiped away the tears before they could fall. If I had just... He sighed, not entirely sure what he wanted to say anyway. Maybe if he didn't know them, maybe if he had shied away from their kindness, then they might have still been alive. He shook his head sadly. No, he couldn't imagine his life without them. Without the both of them smiling. Smiling down happy at him. Not having them in his life would have been terrible. Damn it. I told you we were lost. Naruto sniffed back the tears that were laid to his face. Realized that he was no longer alone in the cemetery. Would you quiet down? We're in a graveyard. Naruto didn't know why, but that voice sounded so familiar. Did he know that person? There's no one here. And don't change the subject. Two girls came to view, one with long brown hair hanging down her back, and the other one, ponytail going down her back. I'm not. Baki Sensei said that it was a training ground, the memorial stone. When we asked that weird Jonin with the face mask, he said that it was this way. Naruto frowned deep and recognizing the girls are not. Speaking this way, in this place, was disrespectful. Well then, you must have misinterpreted him. Naruto coughed in his hand, an irritating expression on his face. He went, completely unnoticed, as they continued to bicker between each other. The masked guy pointed. How the hell could I misinterpret that? Naruto coughed a bit louder, but they still didn't seem to notice. I don't know, but if anyone could find a way, it would be you, fangirl. Once again, he coughed, but they simply ignored him. It was like some barrier was around them as they spoke. What did you call me? The blonde asked. Naruto had enough. He was just glad that there wasn't anyone else here to be disturbed. People in mourning wasn't always rational when you disturb them. He slammed his shakijo on the ground, and despite it being soil, it sounded like his shakijo hit metal. Immediately, both girls closed their ears in pain. It only lasted for a few seconds though, as they had stopped talking. Are you two finished? Despite his young age, Naruto's voice had an edge. It was something that he picked from Chikaku. The man can be playful and jovial one moment, but then became serious and commanding. Both girls turned, as they expected to look up and see a Jonin, but they were not expecting... Wait. Naruto-sensei? Naruto? Naruto raised the eyebrow, as their faces came together. Despite growing a bit taller, it was still them, and they're here, set in different ways. It was the two girls that he met some time ago, although he could have done without hearing that sensei part. It brought up some painful memory with Shizuku. After all, she used to call him sensei when they just started. Matsuri, Temari. Both girls lit up. Before they stopped, and they turned at one another. How do you know Naruto-sensei? How do you know Naruto? The both of them snapped their head towards him. How do you know fangirl? How do you know Matsuri? Temari glared at Matsuri for the name, as they turned back towards Naruto. As Naruto felt uncomfortable now at them staring him down. It took him little time to explain to them that he met the both of them in the sand a couple years ago. And yeah, he actually helped both of them with their training. By the end, they just seemed shocked that both of them met him, but neither of them knew that the other had known him. He moved them away from the cemetery, so they wouldn't disturb anyone else. So wait. As Temari looked towards Matsuri, Naruto is the reason why you advanced so quickly in the academy? Matsuri raised her hand, but she stopped. Technically, Temari was right, as she glanced towards Naruto. Her cheeks became a bit red. You should give Matsuri a bit more credit. I only showed her basic techniques. She was the one that learned them. She blushed at that. She was used to people congratulating her, but to hear it from the one that helped her, it felt so nice. Temari smirked as she crossed her arms. So the little prodigy had help, huh? Matsuri crossed her arms. I can still beat you, fangirl. Temari scoffed. Bring it, Matsuri-chan, she said. Said Naruto. As both girls turned towards him. Sir Naruto-sensei. Sir Naruto. Naruto sighs, he smiled softly. These two, like Sora, had been some of his earlier friends, even if it was just teaching them things, as he couldn't stay mad at them. Well, in fact, he found it hard to stay and get mad at anyone. So, what have you two been up to in the last few years, he asked. In the flashback. As Naruto looked down, he didn't want to miss this. Temari was just getting the basic of wind, and Matsuri was a new academy student when he left. But the both of them had improved, as Temari opened her fan completely, taking Matsuri serious from the get-go, but Matsuri seemed unconcerned. From what he heard, she was usually the victor in their spars. As Temari swung her fan, releasing a massive gust that Naruto could see. The gust contained many sharp blades in it, small enough to contain some damage, but nothing fatal. But before the winds could reach her, Matsuri tensed as she disappeared. Naruto raised eyebrows as he saw her run across the arena, weaving and ducking at incredible speed that Temari seemed unable to keep up with. As he could see the chakra that she was using to improve her movements, it was somewhat similar to waves that strengthened her body, but on a much similar scale. Temari swung her fan that forced Matsuri to leap up in the air. Temari smirked, that was exactly what she wanted, as she created a powerful updraft, launching Matsuri into the sky. But Matsuri surprised everyone, including Temari, as she launched something from her hand. It was small, a blunted dart attached to a length of wire. There was a thin layer of wind chakra coating it as it digged deep into the ground. Matsuri pulled herself down as she shot off once again. It made Naruto smile to see her using what he taught her so well and improving it to this scale, as she was a blur to the untrained eye. The fight didn't last much longer. Temari was exhausting herself as Matsuri used a small movement to help her. Neither were chakra powerhouses, but when it came to it, Matsuri was the winner. After 10 minutes, Temari made a mistake, not putting enough chakra into one of her jutsus, as Matsuri powered right through it and smashed her fist into Temari's face, knocking her down. The crowd cheered. It wasn't the best match, but it was always good to see the up-and-coming generation show what they can do. And Matsuri kept many of her skills hidden, like a true ninja. So they were impressed to see what else she would do in the other fights. As the next two opponents made their way, the crowd started to die down, as many of them were at the edge of their seat. As Naruto recognized the first one as a Uchiha, while the other one was a Kumo ninja. Both of them settled into their senses, not a word spoken between them, but a cocky smirk on each of their face. But before the match could begin, Naruto frowned. His Preta path absorbed chakra that was trying to be invaded into him. He wasn't sure what the other shinobis were seeing, but soon, the non-shinobis fall into a deep slumber. One by one, members not affected stood up, confused what was going on. Then chaos erupted from the ground. There was barely a second as the floor of the arena exploded in a hail of rock and stone. The Jonin and some of the Chunins and the Genins react fast enough to save the civilians from getting injured. Hundreds of barriers lit up all around, as water blasts disintegrate rocks, wind blasts tear down rocks. But then, a moment later, an army rushed out from a tunnel. But this was not the only tunnel that opened up. There was only one village that can do something like this, especially with the tunnels, as the rock headband was displayed proudly on their forehead. Naruto, Fu said as he was visible again. So was Haku and Naruto. But not that anyone was paying attention to them, seeing that they were high up and the fight was going on down below. Naruto was just standing there, his hat gone, and his blonde hair blowing, as his eyes took in everything. Civilians were being saved. Blurs were clashing together. Go, said Naruto. Fu stood up as she saw Naruto open his eyes fully. He wasn't hiding them. Go please, stop the fighting where you can. I'm gonna need a moment for this. Fu hesitated for a moment as she looked at the fighting. She had no feelings for these people. She didn't care for them personally. She had no reason to intervene. But one look at her friend's face that erased all the doubt as she dashed off. Naruto-san, said Haku. You don't have to do anything you don't want, Haku. I know that you don't like fighting. Haku wasn't sure what to say to that. He was never given a choice before, not like this. With Zabuza, it was simply follow his rules without any objection. He knew that Naruto wanted him to fight to help, to see that these fights were stopped. But he didn't force him to do anything that he didn't want to. Alright, Haku said, his face shifting into a blank, emotionless state. as he nodded and leaped off the wall. He will help Naruto not because he was told to, not because those were his orders, but because he wanted to help out his friend. There was also a part of him that wants to get into this needless fighting. As Naruto took a breath, as he focused his coils, the chakra flowing through them, as he locked it up, as he felt his fingertips burning. Then all at once, he released it. All around the village, ninjas that were fighting froze as small tremors went through the ground. Many thought nothing of it, putting it off as a just explosion. An explosion that was off in the distance. But then they saw it. The ground started to shift and twist. Sand. As the sand started to rise, below Naruto's feet lifted him high up in the air. All of the sand shinobi's there, even the Kazekage eyes widen. He has never seen the sand on this scale before, as Temari tried to see the small figure that was on top of the spear of earth. Gara? But what came next shocked them, as Naruto let his chakra rip. It came down on the people like a weight, slamming on their shoulders. Many found their breath catching, as they could even see it in the air. Stop this! A powerful voice amplified by chakra spread through everyone's ear. He was just a silhouette with the sky behind him, his shakijo in his hand. Some of the shinobis could even spot the horns in his headband and his ponytail. But all of them could see the ring eyes that seemed to be staring at the entire village at once. Do you not see what you're doing? Silence met his question as all stared towards the pillar of sand. This fighting, this killing. Don't you see how pointless it all is? As he wanted them to understand. You fight, you kill here today. Tearing families apart, killing brothers, fathers, wife, daughters, ripping friend from friend. For what? The silence was deafening. There wasn't even Konoha and Slash anymore, as they all listened to the speech. What then? Their families, their friends, their loved ones will declare revenge on you, coming to kill you for what they have lost. Then your loved ones will do the exact same thing, in an unending cycle of hatred. As Naruto took in a breath, all eyes are on him right now. If you just drop your weapons and walk away, you can put an end to it. There doesn't need to be mourning when all of this is over. Those of you who do this know how it feels to lose someone precious. Does it really feel good to inflict that same pain on someone else? Someone innocent? Does that lessen your own loss? The emotion behind his words were there, as he had seen it all. When he looked into the eyes of the Mizukage when he killed him, as he felt hollow, even after killing the man. Please, it is up to you all to put an end to this meaningless cycle of suffering and revenge and loss. Most of them understand the bitter pain of loss in their lifetime, as his words strike them deep. Silence reigned as everyone absorbed the monk words, no one moving. But the worst happened to one shinobi. It didn't matter what village he was from, launch a weapon towards one of his enemies. It was like a dam burst, as the entire village descended back into fighting, as Naruto watched his words forgotten. It was like the fight wasn't about win or lose anymore. Just fight for the sake of fighting. As Naruto lowered his head, his hand tightened so tight that blood started to leak from his palm, his nails digging into his palm. Stop! No one was prepared. None of them could have escaped. The ground break away at their feet, wrapped them up into a cocoon of sand. They struggled, but it was useless. Naruto's hand caught them in a vice-like grip. Brute strength could do nothing, and as they struggled, their chakra was siphoned off, strengthening his hand. As Naruto didn't have to guide it, they moved their own will, latching onto everything that had chakra. He would have to thank Shikaku later on, but now he focused on making sure every shinobi was captured. No favoritism could be shown. But before the sand could reach Hikage's boot, not that Naruto think that he could restrain them. A big black smoke could be seen. When it cleared, a massive purple barrier was there. The image inside was distorted as he couldn't see from the outside fully. As Naruto felt something, a foul chakra from the other side of the village. Something that he recognized all too well, a Biju. It seems Roshi was not the only Jinchuriki that belonged to the Hidden Stone, and from what he knew, it had to be the Gobe or the Rokibai. He wasn't sure he could fight the Jinchuriki while maintaining his stand, but he felt something sprinting towards the Jinchuriki. It was Fu. He trusted within his friend, and unless Kumo was a part of this, and that turned out to be Killer Bee, she had the stronger Biju. With that in mind, Naruto made his way towards a cube. He may not have been taking sides in his conflict, but he wouldn't let anything happen to the one remaining person that had most of his good memories with in this village. Meanwhile, Fu touched down on the ground. As the man that she landed near turned to look at her, he was a massive man with a red armor covering his body, with steam coming from him. Who are you? You don't bear the mark of Konoha or the Hidden Stone, the man said. As Fu felt uncomfortable, as the man gazed towards her, as she felt a deep, burning hatred that turned into that red cloak around him that leaked off him and rippled up into the air. It reminded her of when she used her own cloak. She started to pick apart what she could of the man, but it was very little, seeing that most of his body was covered. "I am neither," she said. He then moved forwards, going towards the village, as Fu narrowed her eyes. The ninjas were still trapped in the cocoon, as she knew if he came to a fight with Jinchuriki's, it would be messy, but she wondered if he was showing restraints. After all, stone ninjas are inside as well. "I can't let you hurt anybody. I promise, Naruto." The man stopped, his metal boots clanging on the floor. "If you stand in my way, little girl, I will not hesitate to crush you." The man looked like a steel wall that was just blocking her path. It wasn't just the armor. She had defeated a lot of shinobis that protect themselves with armor. He simply just had an air about him, like she could see all the enemies he defeated, and it blinked into the blood of his red armor. As something tell her that this man had been killing people before her existence was even a thought. Interesting. Most would run. You have no allegiance, and you still stay. He turned his body fully to her. "Why do you stand here, child? Like an ant, standing in front of a mountain?" Fu gritted her teeth in annoyance. She has been abused and used like a weapon for her entire life, as she wouldn't allow anyone to invalidate her being like that ever again. "I am not intimidated by you, we're the same, equals." The man looked her up and down. He was weighing it up whether she was even worth the effort. His eyes then narrowed. "You are a Jinchuriki." "I know this, but a powerful child is still just a child," he said. She kept herself calm as she wondered if he would be saying that if it was Naruto who was standing here and not her. She shook that from her mind though. She was strong. Naruto placed his trust in her and she would not let him down. "Do not consider us equal, child. That is neither Konoha or the stone." "My name is Fu," she said. My name was Han once. But people like us were undeserving as such human names." Fu frowned. That seemed like something that she would say when she was back in Take. "I'm sorry if you feel that way." He seemed confused by the sincerity in her voice, but it was more of a sigh than anything else. He didn't have time to think about it though, as Fu raced forward, kicking up dust on the street as she made her way. She was like Naruto, she wasn't able to talk people down from fighting, and besides, she could see that this man had a deep hatred within him, as she knew it would come down to a fight no matter what. As she made her way, she thought that she was fast, until she met Naruto. Her speed was practically unmatched, but she learned that there was people that can match her and surpass her speed quite easily out there. But Han lifted his arm up easily and blocked her jab. Apparently, even when he seemed less focused, he was alert the same way. She remained focused as he bounced around to attack him, as she came around his back, but he was even more heavily armored with a strange thing on his back. Some kind of firmness built into his armor that released a thick mist that didn't seem good at all. Her years of training made her duck at that point, as his hand ripped through the area where her head was. As the man then turned as she moved back to observe her, his eyes quirking up in interest. Fu didn't care. This time she moved forward as she ducked and twisted out of another swing from the man, as she flipped and roundhouse kicked right on the side of the armor, but nothing as she flipped back. It seems like her normal speed will not be anywhere near to breach this man's first layer defense. "Do you not see how fruitless this is now?" the man said as he looked at her with disconcern in the eyes. He was right. At her current level, she did not have the power to defeat him. Then again, she had a way to increase her own level. The real question was, could he do the same? As she knew that wasting time wouldn't do anything, so she digged deep within herself, finding that hidden well of power, as the bubbling red chakra danced on her skin before it sharpened as a cloak with 6 wings, and the tail came out. The Nadabi, the resentment of her fellow villagers, the anger from Take, everything came bubbling up towards the surface. She repressed it all though as she controlled herself. It was something she'd done so much time before, killing her emotions as much as possible. She knew she didn't have long in this form. She could hold up a single tail state for 30 minutes, as she could feel a light burning sensation on her skin, as she chose to ignore it for now. She moved as the ground ripped apart by just her moving off. Han shifted his stance as he went into a taijutsu style, as Fu attacked him relentlessly, but she was still not breaking through his armor. As he returned the favor, the damage he did was negligible. The heavy blows barely phased in her cloak, but just as he thought that she worked out his pattern and she was going to strike him right in the chest, she didn't know that he was doing the same thing as he ducked. The chakra broke away from her arm and tried to claw at the man's head, but Han rolled underneath it as he slammed his fist right into her stomach. The pain was indescribable. Even with her Bichu cloak, she felt every inch of that blow, as she saw a massive amount of steam exited from the man's elbow projecting his fists faster and stronger. Her feet lift off the ground as she realizes furnace on his back. The steam increases. She was sent sailing. She quickly fixed herself in mid-air as her wings came out. As they started to flap so fast, it became a red blur as she hovered there in mid-air. Han seemed a bit surprised by this before his face hardened. Fu dashed forward much faster now that she was in the air, her element. But he latched out with a fist that connected her right in the throat. But his hand passed through a red blur as she moved with tremendous speed. He didn't know that she would be that fast in mid-air. She was like a dragonfly. She went around him, just staying in at the corner of his eye. He couldn't keep a full view on her. Then he felt the light tap. He couldn't feel it much, but he felt it. Then again, another light tap, as Fu was breaking into his defenses to make damage on his armor. Han started to spin around and tried to figure out where she would come next. But he was struggling to keep a straight fix on her. He started to take her seriously as the furnace on his back started to spew out steam so much that air became enveloped in a thick white mist. But it was no ordinary steam as her cloak started to recede around her, drawn back into her body like a snail against salt. As she quickly flew backwards out of the steam, she was proven wrong as he burst out of the shroud, moving so fast that was beyond someone like him. As his size, he shouldn't be that fast. She dodged as she saw the faint hint of red surrounding his body as he dashed back into his steam. It was fuzzy and uncontrolled, but gave him a boost in power as he hit the ground back in the steam. The place shook. Then everything went still as she didn't see where he had gone. She couldn't go back in the steam or risk losing her Bichu cloak. That was the only thing that would probably keep her alive, as she couldn't stay out here. She only had about 10 minutes left. But then she felt the temperature in the air as the steam started to cool down. As she turned to see Haku in the building, his hands in a hand sign, a concentrated look on his face. Once the steam died down, he stopped as he panted a bit. Han was standing there in his cloak. A moment later, Haku appeared in a body flicker next to Fu as he gave her a nod, which she returned. The two of them turned as Han started to release more of his demonic chakra, ready to face off against him. Meanwhile, as Naruto appeared on the roof of the arena, as he looked at the massive purple barrier, trees were behind the barrier, enclosing the area in a thick forest. He couldn't see anything. As he raised his hand towards the barrier, to see the flames trying to lick at his palm. Good luck trying to get through here, moron. This is a heavy-duty barrier. Try asking those envoy over there. As Naruto saw a boy there protecting in a part of the barrier as well. He then saw ashes. It seems like an envoy got incinerated after touching the barrier. He ignored that as he held up his hand towards the barrier. The barrier section where Naruto stood started to flicker away. Unable to sustain himself without the chakras, Naruto used his breather path. The boy eyes widened as he couldn't believe it. But before Naruto could step in, a coffin came from the ground. As the front crack opened to reveal darkness inside. As Naruto wondered what was going on. Naruto? As Naruto's eyes went wide, as he saw purple hair and that voice. Shizuku? But guys, it'll be in episode right here. If you want the next part, this is what to do. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. Remember, share to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also, guys, go ahead and check out the brand new series over on Anime King 3 of What If Naruto Had Cosmic Energy Part 1, guys. And enjoy that. And I also posted a brand new episode of What If Naruto Was an Emotionless Ghost over on Anime King 2. So go ahead and check out that and enjoy as well, guys. And remember, if you're new, to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Making family. And thank you for all of your help and support. And yeah, I'm out for now, guys. See you guys very soon. Well, tomorrow. Peace.